Welcome, everybody. Good morning and welcome to the Monday Motivation Spotlight. I'm Lesley Kaplan. Welcome you here every single Monday, except for the week of Pesach, which I'll announce afterwards, where we have an inspiring guest, an inspiring Israeli individual, business owner, or nonprofit. And we're here to inspire you as well as to give you information and let you meet some interesting people. We have weekly sponsors, so thank you as always to our sponsors, Nardis Advisors, and to Eggert & Cohen Insurance. As I mentioned, we're not going to be meeting for the week of Pesach. So next week you're on Chofesh, you're on vacation, but this week there's enough to do for Pesach. And the week after, we're going to be having, yes, it's already almost Yom HaShoah after Pesach, the week after Pesach. So we're going to be having a very, very special recording for Yom HaShoah. So make sure that's something that you don't want to miss, with somebody with a very, very intriguing story. So I'm going to spotlight our guest instead of me, and I'm going to tell you who he is. So good morning, Jeff Levine. Jeff is known to many of you, many South Africans, or many of you in the South African and Jerusalem circle. So believe it or not, Jeff and I actually go back many, many years. We've known each other for over 40 years. Then we lost contact for about 20 or 30 years, and we reconnected a couple of years ago when Jeff attended the Jerusalem Business Conference, and then since then we've had some contact. So Jeff, I won't embarrass you, but I do remember, and I don't know if you remember we have this famous photo that we took when we were all teens on one of the beaches in Cape Town. I don't know if you remember that. No, I was not wearing a bikini, and I think the girls were pretty well covered. It was in our non-religious days, but I still remember that photo, and I wish that I knew where it was, where there were about 10 of us there, 10 of us teens from Cape Town around the beach. So on that interesting note, who is Jeff Levine? Jeff is a seasoned CFO. He's a thought leader. He's an author. He's the founder of Persofi, which empowers businesses to streamline financial operations through smart technology. He has a blog. He does a lot more, but I'm going to let him tell you all about it. So Jeff, good morning. Tell us who you are. Share with us your Aliyah story. What brought you to make Aliyah? What brought you to become religious? As I said, we all knew each other in the non-religious days. And share with us what you do and how you help business owners. Shoot.
Great. Thanks, Lizzie. Thanks for inviting me. I feel very excited to be here to share my story. Basically, I just turned 60, as like a lot of other people have here. And
Mazal tov, mazal tov.
And I've done a lot of reflections and I have shared different viewpoints on my life. I've actually got my personal blog page, which is welcome to have a link after. And this is another angle which I didn't think about. And today I'm going to be sharing my Aliyah story. Okay, so my Aliyah story, strange enough, starts in my birthplace in Cape Town. And today we're going to be talking about my physical and my spiritual move from Cape Town via London to Israel. And I'm going to be sharing a deeper story of identity, family, faith, work, and purpose. Aliyah, as we all know, is not a one-time move. I feel like I'm still making Aliyah, believe it or not, after being here 30 years. And in fact, this year will be our 30th year. But I believe it's a step. It's a pair of steps into what we're meant to be in our life, finding our purpose, finding our mission. And as I look back in each place that I've lived, Cape Town, London, Renana, and now Jerusalem, everything has taught me something special. I'll be sharing not only where I've been, but also a few life lessons I've learned along the way, lessons that continue to guide me today. Okay, so let's start in Cape Town. Cape Town, it was a traditional family, yet had a unique Jewish upbringing. I was born into a traditional family, not overly religious. We kept Shabbat dinners, at a kosher style home, went to shul Friday night by car, of course, and the Chagim were always meaningful, filled with food, family, and warmth. One of my earliest spiritual connections came through music. I joined the choir at the Garden Shul, which is formerly known as the Great Synagogue of Cape Town, a truly majestic building. Singing there stirred something in me, and it gave me pride in my Judaism, and even if I couldn't define it yet. After my mitzvah, I started to help my family in the hardware business. It was there that I learned my first life lesson: be kind and treat everyone with dignity. My father ran that hardware store with compassion. In the middle of apartheid South Africa, he treated everyone, regardless of race, status, or religion, with the same respect. He didn't talk about values, he lived them. Customers trusted him, not just because of the goods he sold, but because how he made them feel. And this legacy has shaped me more than I realized. So one of my early, say, trigger points in my journey to Judaism earlier was when I was at Herzl Jewish Day School. I struggled with Hebrew, and it was a decision that we made to leave Herzl. I went to what's called Cape Town High, a government high school where the Jews were a minority, and I felt different for the first time. My Judaism sort of was exposed, and this strengthened my Jewish identity. Not in a religious way, but something more personal and distinct. During this time, I actually attended Bnei Akiva, where some of my friends went more for social reasons, to meet girls, of course, and that's also another part of my journey. At the age of 20, my father passed away. He was only 50, so when I reflect back now, I'm very privileged to be here today. That was a turning point in my life. When I was 20, losing him so young forced me to grow up quickly, but also etched his first lesson in my life, in my heart, which is basically be kind to everyone. Just during my university years, when I got involved with Beitar and decided I would make Aliyah. At 23, I left South Africa with that dream. But first I made a stop in London to earn some money. That short stop became 7 years. London was a great period of discovery in my life. Spiritually, I connected with Rabbi Danny Kirsch at the JLE. His warmth and wisdom opened up new doors for me. 7 months into my London experience came one of my best surprises in my life. I met my wife, Charmaine, also from Cape Town. I'd say that I got lucky meeting Charmaine. Those who know her will attest to that. She told me just a very brief message before I came on the show to share this. She said, "Don't get personal." I think that sums up everything. She's very wise in her words. Anyway, so we met.
But tell Charmaine that's what makes it even more interesting when you get personal, right?
Well, we might get personal. I get too personal, and she's more private. Okay, so let's see how it goes. Okay, so we met at the Hard Rock Cafe, which tells us where we were in our religious journey back then. But together we began to grow in our Yiddishkeit. In fact, the story that I was already sort of growing, but I wasn't quite committed. And she said she wanted to keep a kosher home, and said, "Fine, if you want to keep a kosher home, then let's go all the way. Let's keep Shabbat and everything else." And that's how after we got married, it was like almost like a 360 degrees turn. We basically became kosher and sort of a shomer mitzvah almost immediately. We were very lucky along the way. We were living in Stanmore, but we connected to the shul called the Yeshurun Shul in Edgware, which was led by Diane Gershon Lopian, who was a very warm and understanding and sensitive man. And he took us in and into his orbit, and basically we were guided by his not his knowledge, but his knowledge of Yiddishkeit in the way and the rulings that he gave. But I'm going to digress for a second here. It was interesting because today we see the strictness of Judaism, and he was a Dayan. His grandfather was a famous Elia Lopin. He learned with Rabbi Moshe Feinstein. Yet he gave us the most lenient, how do you call it, the sakdins, whatever it is, to do things. And it was amazing that the more knowledge you have, the more confidence you have in giving those decisions over. And I think that's lacking in our society today. We tend to go too strict. So very fortunate in that. Professionally, I was growing too. I sort of gravitated to working for South Africans, was mainly millionaires, believe it or not, and there's a trend that did continue afterwards. And basically, those days in London, working with these Jewish millionaires from South Africa, from mainly junior positions, but set the tone for my career as a CFO. Fast forward to 1995, at the age of 30, we made Aliyah. We landed in Renana with 2 young children, with more hope than Hebrew. In fact, I'm still challenged by Hebrew today. My career has been working for international companies, living in Renana and other places. You don't get that much English. So we moved into Mekastita. It is a place buzzing with oiling from English-speaking countries. We found the community before we even landed our feet. Our first shul, which was interesting, was run by Rabbi Stuart Weiss, who was a guest on the show here once. And in fact, that is the only show in town. In fact, that is we're going to talk about Renana in the next few minutes. But Renana at that time was Yiddishkeit. It's not like we have today in Renana. Basically, there was a Shifter wasn't around yet. The other shuls were not around yet. And basically, Rabbi Weiss was the only show in town. Anyway, so he basically ran the shul in the Merkaz Gita. I remember one of the bar mitzvahs of one of his sons at the shul, and including and then obviously we all shared with him the sorrow of when he lost his son Ari, and that is when our first the first relative living in Israel came about. We actually came in Aliyah basically the Intifada, but we didn't really feel that much. We were quite protected in Renana, but we're still there. Okay, so Renana. Okay, so I don't know how many people know Renana here, but Renana is a wonderful place to raise children. It also challenged many of our assumptions. Okay, so when we came in Aliyah, we thought being religious was one category. We didn't know there was such a thing as Haredi, Dati Leumi, so that we thought the rabbis had a black hat, and they were more religious, and everybody else, those people more religious, wore black hats, and we just normal people wore normal clothes. Anyway, it became a bit of a culture shock for us, and we were very, very lost. We didn't actually quite know what we were doing, and so we could at that time. The Renana community kollel came to Renana, and we were pretty involved in the formation of the kollel and the creation of a shul called Kilat Ben Aaron, KBA, which is still going. It's called now KBA 2. And we had at that time we were young, but we had a young South African rabbi called Rabbi David Simon, who was very warm and passionate, and really it was a great place to raise our kids. There's the shul that never really grew. We had 30 families in it, but it was very closely knit, and still it sets an example how community can develop in Israel. So one of the things we did do, which unfortunately, we sent our kids to Haredi schools, thinking they would stay more religious, and this is why I think also another thing we need to consider today. And it didn't really work out the way we expected. Today, our children are very diverse. I have Haredi, secular, Dati Leumi, and whatever you call it in between. So we have a very diverse family. But thank God, I'm blessed. I just want to refer another event in Renana that really affected us. In 2006, one of the sons of one of our members of our shul, Benji Hillman, was killed in Lebanon. And that was like our coming of Israeli moment. We just attended his wedding 3 weeks before he was killed. His family and his friends built the Benji Hillman Lone Soldier Center in Renana, which is basically it's a flagship project for lone soldiers in this country. So we're very privileged to be a little bit part of that whole story. Okay, so at the age 40, things were going quite well. I was the CFO for one of Israel's wealthiest businessmen, on the tycoons in those days. We had a beautiful home, it's a great job and a fancy car. And then I lost my job. and it took me on a journey of discovery. I thought I would be able to, with my experience, to go into business by myself. So I went into some business in renewable energy and things like that. Didn't quite work out. It led to a period of being sort of unemployed quite a while. Eventually, I had to take jobs in this journey, and this journey took me to Poland, working for the Chabad Shlichut. We had a side business in real estate, developing real estate in Poland. Thereafter, I sort of scratching for work. I ended up in the forex industry, which is an industry I spent, let's say, 10 years working, maybe more, which wasn't the best of industries from from an ethical point of view, and we'll come into that later. I also took me back to London, and took me to I had a stint in Dublin, and then back to London again thereafter in another position. So for the last 20 years, I've been sort of wandering and traveling for work, which has been it's pluses and minuses, but it's taken me on the journey, and this journey was sort of a wake-up call for me. It was a journey of discovery. I discovered that first of all, I lacked certain emotional intelligence skills, which I had to develop quickly. My ADHD came out in the force, so but that was fine. It also took me on a spiritual journey, and I'm very passionate in what I do, and so I embraced the teachings and the music of Rabbi Shlomo Carlebach, and that took me to the spiritual vision of Rav Kook, and eventually now led me to the intellectual brilliance of Rabbi Jonathan Sachs. Okay, so these teachings transformed me. I started seeing Judaism not an obligation, but as a path to meaning, unity, and purpose. So let's talk about that journey. So that journey took me to Jerusalem, and I'd actually, I forgot to mention, we're living in Anna, but I got a job in Jerusalem. So I was commuting in Jerusalem, so we developed a connection to the city. So in 2017, after 4 of our 5 kids had finished school, whatever it is, we decided to come to Jerusalem. We started in Machavia, but it was too American for us. And then during COVID, we found ourselves in Safon Talpiot, which is above the first station before the Tayelet. And it's a beautiful community. I'd say it's a secret of Jerusalem. So if anybody wants to make Aliyah to Jerusalem, this is the place to be. Safon Talpiot. Don't be misled by the name, but it's not Talpiot, but it's an amazing community. And I met a host of interesting people, retired rabbis, teachers, judges, you name it, and dreamers. And it's really been an eye-opener. In fact, I started a blog series, The People You Meet in Jerusalem. It was so inspiring, all these people. That's a bit dormant now, but it's in Jerusalem where I really found my voice. I'm conscious I've only got about 5 minutes left, so I will try.
No, you're good. You have more than 5 minutes. Don't worry.
No, fine. And so just to reflect on the last decade, as also been, as in moving to Jerusalem, has been a further deep discovery and realignment of my life, basically. We downsized from a house in Renana to an apartment in Jerusalem. We became grandparents, Baruch Hashem, 8 times over, and I began focusing on what really matters. So at 60, I discovered a major life lesson I knew before, but focus on your strengths and do it with passion. And this is where I'm going to come up to my 3 passion projects, which I have at the moment, in addition to family, grandchildren, and wife, and holidays. And so I embraced, first I'm going to talk about ESG. ESG, environment, social governance, was quite popular, let's say 4 or 5 years ago. And I embraced it. Everything I do in my life, I sort of go head on first into it, and then basically I started, I'm going to reposition my career, and I'm going to focus on this. And I basically came up with a brand name called Upgrading ESG. I published the book just before COVID, and see it here, it's blue much. I published the book October the 5th. This was October the 7th that came out, and then since then I've been trying to grapple with these ideas, and the whole environment, social government space has been sort of in let's say boycotted, very much like my own life. I grew up in South Africa, faced boycotts there. Being Israeli and Jewish, we now have the BDS, and now when I've embraced ESG, it's basically been boycotted, and companies don't, and people are not really that concerned about environment, society, or governance. But nevertheless, I've still rebranded ESG into what empowers society for good. And it's part of my theme in my writings. I publish a weekly blog on Substack, which I recommend if anybody who wants to do blogging should use Substack as a channel. It's a great channel. It's a great channel to learn about other people writing as well. The second series I've got, or passion, is I have which I call blogs on the soul of Israel. I was involved with a show in London, and they asked me to write a weekly, Debat Torah, whatever you call it, and this developed into a weekly blog, and I basically have a byline called The Soul of Israel, before and after October the 7th. And what happens here is that I think we were all affected by October the 7th in different ways, and I think that our thoughts are much deeper than they were before October 7th, and the journey is much more deeper as well. Okay, so what I've done in these blogs, I'm trying to bring the timeless value of the Torah, not from a religious point of view, but from the ethical and impact point of view, saying that the Torah, when it was given 3,500 years ago, was this event that was revolutionary in its time. You had Shabbat, you had treating others fairly, and one God, of course. And it's basically it was revolutionary in its time, and the lessons are still very much relevant today. And in these teachings are basically being very influenced now by Rabbi Sachs, who not only was a great environmentalist. It's something that we don't write about or talk about, but you can probably write. I might even write a book about Rabbi Sachs's environmental impact. But I'm very moved by Rabbi Sachs's two words. He has a word called good society, that does the idea to create a good society. And I think this is, when you look at the soul of Israel, our path is to try to create a good society. So in these blogs, I become very much an advocate for Israel. I'm trying to combat misinformation and obviously highlight the internal relevance of Torah in a broken world. So this is another theory, and I basically have a manuscript for about 600 pages of a book for this, but I'm not sure how. It'll probably be more than one book, but I just felt I'm writing a book, it's sort of closing the chapter, and I think the chapter already goes on. Okay, so, and I think that I'm really at the moment. I have a day job. I have these bloggings and everything else. But and it's my third passion as a CFO. Throughout my career as a CFO, I try to bring efficiency, and the accounting industry is very tedious. I'm sure Lesley, as a business owner, the paperwork and is overburdened and everything else. And working for let's say, my career has been with small, medium-sized companies, SMEs, but it doesn't mean they're small companies. They've been hundreds or tens of millions of investment portfolios and other activities, but you also have this personal touch of business that goes in. So through my current job, we put in certain processes into our business by chance, using cloud accounting, automation, and even using AI. And basically, it led me to realizing that there is a better way for small businesses to manage and their finances and their accounting. And I came at that, and I thought I want to share this knowledge to help small businesses, which I define as anything from 2 people to 200 people, from, let's say, from $500,000 whatever to $100 million, to run their businesses more efficiently and save money and save time. And so I had an existing brand name called Persofi, and now I'm basically I'm in the process of developing a training course or AI-powered financial automation. So we all have this idea of AI and ChatGPT, and I'll just end up this, and I think this is very interesting. So I'm a bit of a tech, what do you call it, tech geek, and I've really embraced AI. I know people are not embracing it, but basically I believe that AI is the future, and those who don't embrace AI will be left behind. And but there's still AI is not efficient. So even though you AI might take you 80% of the way, the 20% personal interaction is so much needed. And that's what we people, us, have the ability to bring to the table. So let's just a few final reflections. So my Aliyah journey has taken me through countries, communities, careers, and inner transformation. From Cape Town via London, Rwanda to Jerusalem, from CFO to writer, from spiritual sleepwalking to heartful connection, and from a sort of cultural tick box with Judaism to a more deeper universal view of Judaism. So Aliyah is not about where you want to live, but it's about what we are becoming. And I think I'm very privileged to have spent 30 years in Israel on this journey, and I'm sure we all can speak the same. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Wow. Yes, very interesting indeed. You know, a couple of points that I actually wrote down that you said. Number one, yes, is that we all know, and many of us think when we want to improve ourselves, that we need to improve our weaknesses. And while that is true on the one hand, it's very true that when we identify our strengths and we focus on tasks using our strengths, that's when we're going to have the biggest area of success. So you mentioned about the strengths, and that's one thing that is definitely valid. The other thing is, I didn't realize we had both lost parents at a young age. For those of you that heard my live 60th birthday bash 3 weeks ago, you're here too. And I see with you too, Jeff, that's influenced a lot of the way that you lead your life, having a parent, losing a parent at such a young age. So yes, that's also very prominent. And also you mentioned just about the religious thing, and that's so true as well. When I landed in Israel, you know, in South Africa, it was like no pun on the words black or white, but there was black and white, and everyone was in their separate areas, whereas here it was like very much interspersed, and you're either in this box or that box or that box. And I learned that too upon making Aliyah. So Jeff, thank you so much for sharing your Aliyah story. Any final words? You want to say something?
Yeah, so you talk about, so I'm going to bring a personal note for you. So when my father passed away, Anthony was staying with us. It was on Yom Kippur. And I don't know if you were with Anthony at that time. There's a personal connection with you indirectly in that time. So we'll put
I didn't realize that. Wow, wow. Okay, well, thank you. Thank you for mentioning that. All right, so thank you, Jeff. Thank you to all of you for joining us for another Monday Motivation Spotlight. As I said, next week we are not meeting during Chol HaMoed, but please make sure you do join us. It's the day after Isru Chag, which will be our next Monday Motivation Spotlight, Monday the 21st. It's a special Yom HaShoah podcast with an intriguing guest where you'll hear the full story. I was like amazed when I heard the story. So please make sure that you join us live for that. I'm Lesley Kaplan. Thank you again to our sponsors, Nardis Advisors, as well as to Egan & Cohen Insurance. Wishing you all a Chag Pesach Kasher v'Sameach. May we have a quiet time. Am Yisrael Chai. Who knows what's going to be, but we should have a quiet week now leading up to Pesach, and of course during Chol HaMoed. Wishing the safe return of our hostages and of course our soldiers and our nation's safety. Thank you. Chag Sameach. See you in 2 weeks' time. Thank you again, Jeff.